I'm Corbett Wall with DV Auction, here with your feeder flash for Friday, June the 22nd. We've got a ton of stuff to talk about on this visit, and I'm going to try to get right to it and stay with it so I don't keep you too long. And yesterday's report was kind of weak, so we're going to do a little better. But the Farm Bill passed on Thursday there, and it's not going to impact the cattle that much, but the grains, yes. But we'll start to see some of the details of that. But something that's a whole lot more important to the commercial cattle market is your grass cattle got priced pretty much on Thursday at Superior's Tall Grass Special in Emporia, Kansas. I'm going to talk about that a little bit later. Hang with me. I'm going to go ahead and give you the cattle on feed estimates. They'll be coming out here today. But inventory for June 1st, average of the analyst guess is 103.4. So we'll see where that comes out. Placements for May, 95.8, and that's down there quite a bit again, pretty low, so it'll be something if we can hit that mark. And I don't think we'll have to get lower than that for it to be bullish. If we can get close or right on it, then I think it could be a pretty positive report. But these analysts have been doing a good job the last few months predicting the report, and hopefully they get it right again. Marketings for May, big, 105.2. So if we can hit that mark, that'll definitely be a positive. But your cattle on feed inventories this year peaked in April. We're going on the downhill side. As of last year, they peaked in June. Let's look at the board on Thursday. August live cattle down 52 cents to end the day at 106.12. June spot live cattle down 37 cents at 108.65. We still think we're going to keep this week's trade over $1.10, but and it's, you know, that's some basis there, and we're getting way late in June, but still it's starting to tighten up a little bit. August feeder cattle down 95 cents to end the day at 148.47. Go out to October and it's bouncing around. It's back to a little bit of a premium now. October was down 60 cents at 149.02. Your fat cattle trade has been very, very slim so far this week. We've seen some scattered trades, but not much of them in the northern plains. Again, this week we haven't seen anything in the southern plains yet. We will see something on Friday, but likely not till after the cattle on feed report comes out. Colorado hadn't sold any cattle this week at all and didn't sell any negotiated cattle all of last week. So we expect to see them sell some cattle. Through Wednesday, only 4,900 had sold. If you remember, on Wednesday they sold several cattle there at $1.10. Most of those on the Fed Cattle Exchange in Nebraska. And they did have a pen of cattle that were PO'd at 112 in Kansas. So if that gives you any indication of the market, your feedlots are going to try to hold out for more money. But these packers are really playing hardball here late in the week. They've lowered the bids out in the country. Some of your regionals are carrying, you know, only $1.73, and that's on a grid. And so the 178 that we saw in Iowa trade on Wednesday probably won't be able to have that happen. On Thursday morning, they did sell some cattle at 173 in Nebraska, and that's all those guys are carrying. That's going to be lower. And all of a sudden, the northern plains aren't being able to hold this market up. And the southern plains haven't been selling enough negotiated cattle to really make a difference. But there was a few 110 to 113 in Iowa on Thursday morning. You know, maybe we can get 113 in the southern plains, but that'll probably be it, because these packers are really tightening down. They've got a ton of formula cattle scheduled for the next couple of weeks, and finish out this big week's a kill, and next week will probably be another big kill, perhaps the biggest one of the year. But had some 174 in Iowa paid on Thursday morning, but not much of it, guys. Box beef cutout values were lower on choice and a little bit higher on select, so kind of mixed. But choice cuts 217.41, down 88 cents. Selects 201.61, up 56. Now let's look at your feeder cattle markets. Didn't have very many big on-site sales. Pratt only had around 1,400 head on there. Your feeder steers there were firm to $4 higher, but not a lot of anything else enough to test the market. But now I want to talk to you about Superior Livestock Auctions video tall grass special in Emporia, held in Emporia, Kansas, out there in the middle of the Flint Hills. If you don't know what the Flint Hills are, it's a huge grazing region there on the central east strip of Kansas, going running north and south there. A lot of cattle are turned out there. A lot of that country's owned up by just a few entities, and then they lease that country out seasonally to graze. And they found out that it's really better for the grass if they let them turn twice as many cattle out for a short time. So they call that double stock, and a lot of those cattle will be coming off middle of July, which we're already on that. The rest of the cattle come off later on in the summer, but most everybody does the double stock in the Flint Hill region. Also the Osage region, you go down into southern Kansas, running into northern Oklahoma, northeastern Oklahoma, big grazing region out there, but we haven't seen hardly any cattle like that sell. We haven't seen them sell on the video. We haven't heard very many reports of them selling direct, and of course they're going to sell for mid-July and later, so they can't have already sold them in the sale barns. But did get to see some good tests on there. The ones that I decided to pick out here for you, Willie cattle, 282 head of steers to weigh 850 pounds, the 10th of July. And those cattle are in the Osage region, actually, because they're 100 miles east of Wichita. So if you think about that, that's really out of the way of your Flint Hills region, getting down into your Osage, but still in Kansas. But for 850 pound steers, July the 10th or thereabouts, and they did have a 25 pound weight stop, so they will not weigh more than 875, or they give that weight away if they weigh more than 875, and an 8-cent slide on the top side, so no more nickel or 7-cent slides. 8-cent slides what it takes to sell them, but 282 to weigh 850 at 152. So that was the high end, and those would have been the highest cattle in the Osage region. Now that might not have been so high for the Flint Hills, but a lot of those Flint Hill guys are really proud of their cattle. You've heard me say before that you can pretty much flag a car down on the Kansas Turnpike out there and sell a couple loads of yearling steers off grass there, because everybody wants them. Your feedlot guys that buy them all the time really don't want the owners feeding those cattle, because they don't want them seeing what they'll do. They'll all gain 5 pounds or more out there. They're just green. Those cattle are out there running just on grass and maybe some loose salt and ruminant blocks there, but those cattle are so green and good that whenever they hit the feedlot, I tell you what, they just turn a flip, and they will absolutely do it all. But those Flint Hill cattle, we're going to say a base price to talk about summer Flint Hill cattle, especially your double stocks, 850 pounds at $1.50. And everybody's priced higher than that. They had several POs on there. They had some cattle scratched on there, but they think those cattle ought to bring more than that, 850 pounds at $1.50. Now that would buy a lot of cattle in the Osage. Those cattle are not selling quite as well as the Flint Hill cattle, partly because there's not as much northern influence in the Osage cattle. Most of those are coming from the southeast or bought locally, which would have been northeast Oklahoma, moving over into southern Missouri and Arkansas, so that the cattle are not always quite as good when you get down in the Osage, but kind of a different type of grass. And your main feedlot buyers would rather have Flint Hill cattle, so you can kind of figure maybe a nickel back on the Osage cattle, but still, that's a pretty stout price for the way things are right now. They haven't been bringing near that on the spot market in the sales or anywhere else with an 850 pound steer at $1.50, except for Valentine, Nebraska, and we're not sure what kind of grass that they're smoking in Valentine, Nebraska, but you get some of these prices and they're just so crazy high that you can't believe it, but it's happening. You know, got confirmation on it, but we got several I want to quote on there. But 2 loads of steers weighed 853 pounds in the ring in Valentine, Nebraska. Now they were NHTC or non-hormone treated cattle, not all natural, but just no hormones. But 2 loads weigh 853 pounds, $159.50. Wow, haven't heard anything within a dime of that selling hardly anywhere else. But now look at some other quotes there, and I got these pictures from Matt Lowry, the world champion auctioneer that sells there, and he's spreading the word on what these cattle are bringing. But these cattle went back to grass, 66 head of 729 pound stocker steers going north to grass, 177 and a quarter, and those were not program cattle at all, just good cattle. And then the quote I think is the highest of all these cattle. And again, these cattle were, they either had implants or were not in a program. They're not NHTC. They're not anything special. They're just good quality cattle, all one raising up there in that grass country there, Cherry County. But they're just green, gant, and good. That's the only program that they're on. But 60 head of 925 pound steers bring 149 in Valentine on Thursday. That's your feeder flash for Friday.